Hello, in this tutorial we'll be looking at basic level editing in Red Eclipse. First, a few setup items from the main menu. Under Profile, please make sure your name is entered as the player name. You can choose a color for yourself and a model. This is how other players will see you in a collaborative editing situation. Under the Options menu, we're going to edit the gameplay and turn first-person opacity to 0, and we're going to turn off first-person bob effect and first-person sway effect. Also, under user interface, we're going to turn off show crosshair. That gives us our basic setup, and now we can go into offline practice if we're editing by ourselves. We choose the editing mode, and we can either choose any map or a map that we've already edited, which are at the bottom of the list. What you should do is choose a few maps and start the game and take a few moments to explore what other map editors have done. This will give you a lot of inspiration. We'll show you what's possible in terms of lighting, in terms of sound, and in terms of texturing and construction of levels. When you begin, you're spectating, which means you can fly. Your movement controls are standard: W forward, S back, A to the left, D to the right, except in spectating mode you can move right through walls, and if you face up, your W key will fly you into the sky. If you face down, your S key will fly you. So this gives you a nice ability to fly around and see what's happening with the architecture of the models before you're actually moving around inside of them. To join a level, hit E. And you can explore the level. Spend some time exploring the level, looking at the objects, how they're constructed, how they're textured, how they're lit. Once you've explored a level, you can delete it by entering the edit mode, which is function F2, hitting the tilde key, which is the key on the upper left of the keyboard under escape, and typing new map, N-E-W-M-A-P, all lowercase, and return. That deletes the map and gives you a blank space to work in. I can look up by pushing my mouse forward, look down by pulling my mouse back, and I can fly down to the surface using the W key and look around me by rotating the mouse left, pushing the mouse left and right. I have a small editing square. When I click it, I can push my scroll wheel forward to build, or pull it backwards to dig or destroy. So if I push my scroll wheel forward, I build a tower. I click on this square, I pull my scroll wheel back, and it deletes that square. This is the entire editing scheme of Red Eclipse. Click and pull back to destroy. Click and push forward to build. To change my editing square size, I hold down the G key and again use that scroll wheel, scrolling back to make my editing area larger, scrolling forward to make my editing area smaller. With a smaller editing area, I can do more detailed work. quite complicated shapes. I can texture my surfaces by selecting them and either hitting function F1 to open up a texture menu from which I can choose from a very wide variety of textures. Or holding down the Y key, which will give me access to recently used textures and quick access to all the other textures available to me. There are two texturing modes. When in the normal texturing mode, which is called all faces off, I'm only texturing the surface that I've selected. But in the all faces on mode of texturing, it will texture all faces of the selected cube. So for instance, if I use the G key to make my editing area larger, and I hit the minus key to turn all faces on, when I select my texture, it selects all faces of the cube in question. This is a very quick way to texture all around objects. Similarly, when working with a smaller area, I can shrink my editing square down by holding down the G key, selecting the area I would like to texture, and when I texture it, notice that the squares are textured all the way around. So all faces is very effective for getting at those hard to texture spaces. Using the G key, I can build very large structures with a single click, but I can also destroy very large areas of my map with a single pull of the mouse. So it's important to not abuse a large grid size. You can undo in single editor mode by hitting Z, but not in collaborative editing mode. Undo does not work. If I use a large grid size to build something, I can then use a small grid size to hollow it out. If I want to texture the inside and outside, I want to turn all faces off so that I can give the interior a different texture than the exterior. Because with all faces off, my inner wall and my outer wall can be different. Like so. And even my edge can be different. if I hit the minus key and go to all faces on, all faces of these selected cubes will be textured, meaning that the inside wall and the outside wall will be the same texture until I then turn all faces off and apply a different texture to the surface that I would like to have a different texture. At any point I can leave editing mode by hitting function F2 and walk around inside my space. And anytime I like, go back into editing mode where I can fly freely through and above what I'm working on. A few more editing features. To add extra detail to objects, I have a couple of tools I can use. To angle faces, I can hold down the Q key and push individual faces of a cube. So here I've created an angled cube face, holding down Q and pushing the edge of the cube. So if I apply texture to this, we'll see it a bit more clearly. I'll go into all faces mode. And we can see that I've angled a notch out of the side of this structure. Now colored yellow so you can see it. So this breaks you out of the constant cubeness of the editing area. Also, individual faces can be pushed and pulled using the F key. So the F key allows you to control the depth of individual faces. Allowing me to create this recessed light look. Once you have something that you want to save, hit the tilde, type save map, no spaces, SAVEMAP, then leave a space and give yourself a memorable map name. John_map_1, something you're going to remember. Also write it down, because there's no way to get back to your map from within the editor, except by its name. So if something terrible happens to your map, like you accidentally have a big grid size and just wipe everything out, oops, you can hit tilde, type edit, space, that wasn't what I called it. And everything is loaded. Edit John Map 1. Also, when you start an editing session, to leave a server, I hit escape and then click disconnect. If I go back into offline practice, I will see my map by name here at the bottom of the list of available maps, and I can return to editing my map. I have to choose the editing mode, John Map 1, and I'm back to editing my map. All right, that's enough for today, and I look forward to going over some lighting and more advanced editing with you next week.